Welcome into the best in paranormal podcasting. This is Darkness Radio. I'm your host, Tim Dennis. Great show today, folks. Got an old friend back with us today as we dive a little bit into all the things that have been going on lately with, and it's not just a few things going on, everything going on with supposed disclosure. I'm using air quotes if you're watching on video. Everything having to do with aliens, everything having to do with the space program, everything and it's been a busy 5 to 6 months here in the new administration. So we're going to talk with an old friend. You've seen him on television on Ancient Aliens. You've seen him on his own website. Maybe you've taken a trip with him. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome back our old friend, Mike Ricksecker, to the program. Mike, how are you?
Doing pretty well, Tim. Thanks for having me back. Always good to chat with you.
Good to chat with you as well. I failed to mention Portal to the Stars as well, his latest book, and we'll have a link to in the description to this program so that you can check out that book as well. I don't want to undersell the book as well, Mike, because the book is fantastic. It's an amazing book, which, by the way, I have gone back and reread since we had you on the program.
I appreciate that.
I love that book. Love that book. Absolutely fantastic book. I want to dive into it a little bit here with the fact that as we're taping here this morning, there was yet another release of files, right?
Yeah.
And
yeah, the NSA, who I used to work for way back in the day in the mid to late 90s, has released 300 and some odd files here that I haven't had a chance to go through. Like we were talking before the show, I was working on some material for the 161 that was released here 2 weeks ago. And I shot the article over to my wife, Kate. Hey, Kate, check this out. And so she sent me a whole bunch of stuff from it that I haven't had a chance to look through. But yeah, now the NSA is getting in on the action here.
Which is odd, right? As we were talking before the show briefly, I can put two and two together, having worked on the press side of things, to say, well, the company line could be, we go through the Department of War to the company line of, well, there's sensitive targets here potentially, so that's why we need to scrub the video and send it to you. Although in that first release, we got, stuff from the Apollo missions and things that don't necessarily qualify as Defense Department, right?
Right.
So, we get the hodgepodge. And again, you and I haven't seen the new release from the NSA. So why the NSA? I'm only going to speculate. I'm not going to throw you in the hopper here, but I'm going to speculate that potentially, and again, we're not a political program, but with everything that's going on in different wars and foreign affairs, maybe the War Department's a little too busy to handle. Maybe it's the NSA's job now. Who knows?
Yeah, with the NSA, from at least a little bit that Kate was able to relate to me about it, a lot of it is, some of the different balls of light that we've been seeing in the sky. The bit that I saw, just headline reading, and the first couple of paragraphs, it had to do with material that's come out of one of their signal programs. So the NSA primarily works in surveillance. And that was my job with them, was basically supporting the spies. So, when people kind of go down the road of, they have hidden UFO technology and things like that at NSA, what I would say about that is they could be using, as other departments, as we've speculated about, maybe using some extraterrestrial technology that we've back engineered or whatever. I don't believe, at least from my experience working with them and their mission, I don't think that they have UFOs on site or something like that. But as far as, the type of surveillance that they do and the way that they monitor the world, yeah, they're going to come across different anomalies in the sky and things like this. So it's not entirely surprising that they are releasing something, except for the fact that, we just had the release from the War Department, which, again, I don't think we should be warring with extraterrestrials, but
right.
So NSA is an interesting new release here.
You bring up another thought to my mind now that you bring that up. And are we shifting gears maybe with the way we're going with disclosure too? The reason I say that is the first wave of disclosure we get is, okay, crafts, crafts in the sky. With the switch to NSA in this drop, are we getting, like you mentioned, lights, orbs? Are we getting more earthbound phenomena? And then from there, in this, as we get closer to summer, as we get closer to the Roswell anniversary, are we going to get downcraft and actual alien bodies, or are we going to then progress from there towards winter? Are we finally going to get the holy grail of alien human hybrids? Do we dare think that maybe we're getting this in stages? Is this how we're going to go about it?
Yeah, and I think that's what people really wanted with the first release. And the first release does have a lot of those, especially toward the end of the file, or file. So like page 16 to 17 has a lot of those orbs and things like that, and orbs coming out of orbs, which I find fascinating. Craft coming out of light. So we did get some of that with the first release as well. But yeah, I think it was one of those, okay, let's test the water. So let's release some information here, see how people react. Because there was, back in the 60s, the whole thing with the Brookings report was that if we told everybody there were extraterrestrials and aliens, there would be a mass crisis on Earth, and we'd have the apocalypse and people would go crazy, crisis of fate, there'd be just anarchy and all this. And we failed with the toilet paper a few years back, the whole toilet paper crisis, which I thought was a test. And it was like, oh, see, this is why we can't tell people. But I think this was a soft disclosure is what I've been calling it, the soft release, giving, some files here of, look, there are things that we can't explain, that we don't know about. I love that they released some information from the Apollo missions. That was something that had been speculated about for decades. And it came off as, I don't know, the response was kind of lackluster. You had a number of people, like myself, that was really appreciative about it. Being at Parapsychon this past weekend, I chatted with Ben Hansen quite a bit that first night. It was, we were next to each other on the bus that was going over to the meet and greet. And, he was pretty excited about the files. But yeah, most people looked at it as one, either it was a distraction from all the political stuff going on right now, which I don't disagree with. Sure, of course it is.
Sure.
But secondly, it was a lot of material of, look, lights in the sky and other, grainy video footage that we can't make heads or tail of and that sort of thing. That people want the hello, Mr. Alien, hello, Mr. Extraterrestrial. Even acknowledging downed craft. I don't know if people would really get excited about, because we've been talking about it for so long. If they release something, we have a piece of a craft. Hey, people might be like, oh yeah, finally you're finally admitting it. But I think people want to, see the craft in its entirety rolled out to the White House lawn with the extraterrestrial and have a meet and greet.
Yeah. There was a huge story I think the media really missed, and it was a horrible opportunity that they whiffed on. And that is, in this release, there were pictures of the Apollo mission, and you see lights, right? And you've had these astronauts that have actually taken their reputation in hand, come out and said, no, we did see something.
Yeah.
And there was no follow-up whatsoever with any of these astronauts to ask, that are still alive, to ask, well, do you feel vindicated? Right?
Right. Yeah, because you're right. They put their reputation on the line, and you had some that, old crotchety guys like Buzz Aldrin, like, I don't care, I'm going to tell everybody, the monolith and, all that stuff out there, which was great. And some of the others who came forward as well. So yeah, this is definitely a vindication for many of them. And, just going through the footage, and they included the audio of the Gemini 7 mission where they spotted a quote unquote bogey in space. They couldn't identify. They had no idea what it was. And going through some of the other transcripts from Apollo 12 and Apollo 17, where they're en route to the moon and they keep seeing this object in the sky that's flashing. And at first they're trying to make sense of it. Like, is it, something that came from us? Is this, ice that came off of our craft, or maybe a piece that came off, or whatever? They're trying to make sense of it, and they just can't. And then as they're approaching the moon, they're seeing something flash on the moon, and they're like, what the heck is that? So yeah, it's incredible. And I agree with you. Yeah, they totally whiffed on this.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's a shame. I mean, you only have one opportunity really to grab that story and while it's red hot and really drive that thing home and tell people how important these files really were when they came out. But it's almost like, a lot of times people say, well, the media doesn't drive hard enough, or that maybe they drive too much, or there's a lot of scrutiny that falls on the media, and sometimes it's unwarranted. But I think in this case, they really were working along with the government on this deal. They really were working hand in hand.
Yeah, but I also, so a lot of people are saying this is an attempted distraction away from what's going on in Iran and the Epstein files and all that. Or was it that it was purposely released now because there is such a focus on these other things? Yeah, we're finally going to give you some information, some files, and it's going to fly under the radar. They won't make a big public spectacle about it in the news because of all these other things going on. And yeah, we're going to give them some information, but nobody's going to really know about it because of everything else going on.
Yeah. To put it out there and then say, well, go look for yourself, in a way is a little bit genius, because the people who really do research this stuff will go see it and say, well, I don't think there's anything new here. The people who are new to it won't really dive in. Is that the idea here, Mike? That the great unwashed, the great uneducated will go, well, that requires work. I don't know that I really want to do it.
Right. I think it is a lot of work to dive into those files, because you're talking, some that are hundreds of pages long that you're reading through it. And I haven't had a chance to go through it. And again, talking with Ben, he had it, and that's his focus, is UFOs. That's what Ben does. And he hasn't had a chance to go through it all. There's just so much out there. So yeah, I think a lot of people are just going to be overwhelmed about it. They're going to headline read and just, I think a lot of people are just shrugging their shoulders and like, okay, it's kind of what they've been talking about here for the last several years with these congressional hearings. And what's the big deal? I don't need to dive into it, without really realizing what happened here in these files. Because everything that's been going on in the UFO hearings for the last, 5 years, or however long it's been, they've only been talking about recent cases from like 2000 onward. They hadn't been talking about anything new, which was driving me nuts, because it's like, what, did we forget about the 1940s up until 2000, like 60 years worth, we're just going to ignore? And you even had, I forget their names now. They were specifically asked, hey, what about the Maelstrom case? One of the congressmen had asked, what about the Maelstrom case? And the two officials that are standing up there are like, oh, we don't know anything about that. We'd have to look into it. It's like, how in the world can you head up this department and not know anything about this case if that's what you're supposed to be looking into?
Right.
So it was just, I've always been of the thought that this is the government's way of trying to control the narrative.
Mm-hmm.
And so they only dealt with recent cases. And I think that what they've done here, I'm happy they've gone back to 1947, the 60s, and some of these other ones. I'm very happy to see that. But it's still really hand-selected cases. You even look at the first page of the files, and the first 9 or 10 are FBI files, and number 8's missing. Where'd that one go? What
Really?
happened there?
Huh.
Yeah.
Interesting. When it comes to what they will and won't deal with, I really do wonder myself. Like you mentioned, it seems like it's all recent stuff, but then everybody seems to be pointing out this anniversary of Roswell that's coming up in July.
Yeah.
And everyone seems to think that the government is really smarter than what they are, and that maybe that there's this grand plan and this grand rollout, and we've got this date in mind, right? And that it's all leading up to this, and maybe this slow rollout is really this huge plan. Like, we start now, like there's this grand timeline, right, Mike? So we start with now, and then we work our way back. So everything eventually will come out, And we're just going backwards in time. You know what I mean? So if we start from now and then we work our way back, we'll eventually get everything. But do you really think they're going to come out with things like, and I have some examples after the break of some things in our current space program. And, you know, one of the interesting stories that came out a few weeks ago is that the FBI has now launched an investigation into the scientists that are missing and expired, which we'll get into as well.
Yeah, but the probe came back. I think it was 2 weeks ago. Yeah, it was when I had Dustin Perry on my show because we were talking about the missing scientists. I think it was that day where the probe came back and said, "There's no link between these cases," and which is really a head scratcher because just on the off, just looking at the list. Well, these three people here all worked at Los Alamos.
Right.
That's a link right there.
Right.
So, yeah, it's
because there's something really, really disturbing about something that got announced this last week, and it makes those missing scientists even more. It makes it look fishy.
Yeah,
and we'll bring that up after the break, though.
Okay.
But where I'm going with this is it seems like we're going down this timeline, right? We're starting with recent, and then we're going all the way back, and we're working our way back to eventually when we get to July, and when we've worked our way, because the 250th anniversary of our country, the celebration's officially in June. I think they do the UFC thing on the in Washington in June, so that I don't know if they don't offend somebody's sensibilities or whatever it is, and then in July we do the big celebration, and then you have the Roswell anniversary. I think that's when and then of course Disclosure Day has come out, and I actually have a clip from. Did you see the clip from Colbert last night?
No, I did not.
Okay, I have something interesting to play for you from Spielberg. I think Disclosure Day is going to have some interesting tidbits in it.
Oh yeah, I'm very much looking forward to Disclosure Day.
I think he says some interesting things in the interview with Colbert that I think he's tipping his hand a little bit that this is going to actually, Disclosure Day is actually going to be another one of those soft introductions to one of the things that the government's going to be, laying down their cards. This is kind of a prep to get us ready for what it is they're going to lay down to us.
Yeah.
Except for you lay it down in fiction so that we're ready for it, right? Or this is his way of saying, you know what, this is the finale to what I introduced you to in Close Encounters. This is him bookending
Spielberg has kind of been laying it out for some years too. And it really has been prepping us. He had working with J. Allen Hynek on that film. I think it was Genius.
Mm-hmm.
It's between that, E.T., and then you have some of the other bigger sci-fi ones where it's an interesting mix because you have people that are afraid that we're going to get invaded and annihilated, like War of the Worlds or Independence Day sort of thing. But then you have things like Close Encounters and E.T., where it's like, well, it might not be that. I think it's you're talking. Different civilizations and races of beings out there that, they're going to have their varying motives, and it's going to be mixed, just like human motives are mixed.
He described the plot of the film last night as this, and tell me this doesn't scream of everything's coming out this summer, as a guy who's in a certain group sees these unreleased files, steals them from a government agency, realizes they need to be released to the public, and is chased by this government agency as he's going to release them to the public. But then realizes that the only way he can fight them is through these emerging powers of empathy and love that he has, along with this other woman that's helping him.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, and the way that he's describing this, he's like, they're not superpowers like Marvel and DC.
Yeah.
But they're powers. And I'm like,
that's fascinating. And, working a lot within with the consciousness community, people that, channel beings and things like this, that's a big part of the message is that, many of these beings are benevolent, are there to help. Again, I believe there are varying factions and things like this, but there are those that are more benevolent in nature. So empathy, love, and all that, which I think is the better message to put across through a film, rather than they're going to destroy the planet.
Yeah. Yeah. So he's setting the table, my friend. It's all there, and it's coming. I believe it's June 12th is the release date on this
Coming up
thing.
here in a few weeks. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, so that's why I think Roswell anniversary date, boom. I think that's when we see footage of the alien bodies from Roswell. I think that's when they lay down the truth.
Well, that would be wonderful. I would definitely appreciate that. And I think, and if that's the plan, that would be incredible. I think they're going to continue to gauge the public reaction. So I think they will only release as much as what they believe the public can handle. So if they release something, prior to alien bodies and things like that, that all of a sudden the public starts to get a little bit stirred up, they might tap the brakes there a little bit. So we'll have to see, though.
Do you think because of everything that's been released, I mean, this weekend we're up against the Star Wars release, Mandalorian and Grogu, right? You've got Disclosure Day coming out, because we are being hit with a summer of sci-fi. In the first release of Files, it seemed like you said, it was kind of a ho-hum type deal. It really kind of washed over people, and people were numb about it. Do you think that these disclosure releases are going to hit anybody in the fields?
It's going to have to be something specific. You can almost relate the release of the UFO files to really what happened to the early space program. You had a lot of those initial hits. Oh, we went to the moon and all that. Once we kept going back again and again and again, the interest waned. People weren't tuning in. You didn't have billions of people tuning into, a rocket launch or a landing or anything like that anymore. And so it became old hat, like, oh, they went again. Okay, whatever. It didn't really get popular again until the shuttle, because, oh, new, shiny, and the shuttle was of interest for a while until we started doing it all the time. And it only picked up interest again and it was sad when, the Challenger exploded. And then again, okay, we're going back up. And then it waned for a while until Columbia. So that's kind of human nature. So I think that's happened right now with the UFO files, because we've had the hearings, and, they did release some small tidbits there through the hearings. So people were tuned into that for a while. And now it's like, okay, what we got here, a lot of people are looking at, because I had all kinds of people commenting, well, why is it black and white and grainy and all that sort of thing? Well, there are varying reasons. We're talking about, multi-decade footage here. But yeah, I think people are relating it to what we've been getting through the UFO hearings. So we need the next step. We need the next big hit, and we'll see how people react.
Let me ask you this. What do you, and we're coming up on a break here, but when you looked at that first wave of files, that, what was it, that 8-pointed thing that was flying around from side to side with the little tail on it? What did you think that was?
Yeah, I mean, it looks like some sort of, some sort of craft to me, just by the way that it's moving, why it's as a starburst shape. I can't precisely answer why it was in that shape. I find it fascinating, but because we find in a lot of our ancient documentation, I can point out to different wall friezes and things like this in Egypt, where you'll find that other Renaissance artwork and things like that starburst, which a lot of people just look at initially and say, oh, it's a star. Yeah, but it might be something else, because when you look up in the sky at a star, it doesn't really look like that sort of starburst shape. The 8 sides like that, but you do find that depicted in art and sculpture and things like that from time to time. So maybe they were telling us something else in ancient times.
And I guess the final thing I would ask you before we take our break, and then we'll come back and we'll talk a little bit about space program, and we'll get a little bit into how the governmental side of this thing. Yeah. Because that's been a little confusing as well. And we'll talk about the governmental representation thing and what's been coming out of government about this whole thing. both Representative Luna, Representative Burchett, who are on the committee for this entire thing, have said one thing that's been a little alarming. And I love to watch TMZ when it comes to this because Harvey Levin is such a bulldog when it comes to what's going on with this whole disclosure movement. He's such a fan of it. And he has Tim Burchett on a lot because Tim Burchett, he's got diarrhea of the mouth when it comes to this thing. He can't shut up. But one of the things he first told TMZ before he told anybody else was, if you've seen what I've seen, you wouldn't sleep at night.
Yeah. And that's kind of an interesting comment because I wonder, okay, is that just because he's saying it would spook the average person? Like, I'd love to get a look at whatever this is.
Well, one of the things
see if I would be able to sleep at night.
One of the things he did say was, you'll see it, as we release these files. But one of the things he did say was these are non-human entities. Those were the words he used, non-human entities, which that piques my curiosity. But go ahead. I'm sorry. I interrupted.
Yeah, I mean, with that, I mean, we could be talking about extraterrestrials. We could be talking about what we call ultra-terrestrials, or what the catchphrase these days is interdimensional beings, something that's right alongside of us that we don't normally see. We're living beside us here, which I think that's probably spookier for people than people coming from space. Because that means they've always been here next to us. And if they're in another dimension, I mean, I could have one sitting in the chair across from me right now and not know it.
Right.
And I think that thought is what spooks people. I kind of look at it the other way. I'm just like, well, if they've always been here and it's never bothered us before,
right?
Why would it bother me now? I would just find it interesting and fascinating because I would want to understand the universe from their perspective, being outside of our dimension, which is the fourth. So if they're in the fifth, sixth, seventh dimension, sometimes cross over into ours. Okay, what does that look like from there?
With that, I'm going to set up our next segment with this. If these quote unquote non-human beings or non-human entities are coming in to help us, if they're coming in and they're doing things like showing up at nuclear silos and nuclear facilities and saying, don't touch that, that's bad, and have been doing this for decades and trying to keep us away from the bad things, why are we so afraid of them? Even though the wrapping looks scary, and they have good intentions, why are we so afraid? And why are people in our own government so afraid? We'll talk about that when we come back with Mike. And we'll talk about one of the things that was announced this past week with our own space program. And one of the scientists that went missing and was later killed, and a propulsion system issue. Anti-gravity was a huge thing in our space program and being developed in our space program. One of the scientists that went missing was developing anti-gravity. That's not what's being proposed for Mars. We'll talk about that when we come back. It's a scary issue that our neighbors up there don't like. We'll talk about it. It's going to be huge here, Mike. Well, I have a theory here when we come back that I want your opinion on. I get chills when I think about it. More with Mike Ricksecker when we come back. We have a link in the description of this program so you can get his book, Portal to the Stars. We've got, by the way, you have a talk coming up here in June, right?
I have a few different things. Yeah, Portal to the Stars. It's a local event that I have here in Ohio that I'm doing. Yeah.
Okay. But we also have a calendar of Mike's events as well that you can check out. We have a link for that as well. But first, before we go to break, I want to tell you about the coolest alien mural you'll ever see. And you can get some great barbecue while you go see that mural. It's at Jelly Bean and Julia's in Coon Rapids, Minnesota. If you can imagine aliens, cowboys, and much, much more, it's all on the back wall at Jelly Bean and Julia's. I've taken a picture of it. You know what? I may post it in the blog at darknessradioshow.com so you can see it. But the specials over at Jelly Bean and Julia's include today happy hour, 25% off all appetizers, including it excludes the appetizer sampler, half price single pour well drinks, half price Mick Golden Lights and Coors Light taps, and half price domestic cans and bottles. Of course, tomorrow is the Smoke Prime Rib Dinner, one of the top 5 dinners you'll ever have in your lifetime. That 14-ounce or 16-ounce prime rib is smoked for 12 to 14 hours, folks. Slow cooked in that walk-in smoker that Corey has over there at Jelly Bean and Julia's. You get that, you get the Boston baked potato, you get the Texas toast, and the tequila berry salad with that sweet and tangy dressing, the bacon bits, and the croutons. It is an absolutely amazing meal. They start serving it at 4:30. It goes until it is gone. I guarantee you want to get there early because it won't last, folks. If you get in there at 7 or 8 o'clock, there's no guarantee that it'll still be there. So get there early. Then, of course, on Sunday, you've got breakfast on Sundays only. You've got the brisket with the hash and much, much more. Chicken and waffles. Get there for breakfast on Sunday, folks. Jelly Bean and Julia's over in Coon Rapids on Coon Rapids Boulevard. Once you're there, I know it's an Olive Garden thing. You are family, but you've also got your spot. Jelly Bean and Julia's in Coon Rapids on Coon Rapids Boulevard, jellybeanandjulias.com. We have a link in the description of this program. All right, when we come back, we'll talk space program. We'll talk propulsion systems. We'll talk whether the aliens will deal with what we're doing in the future and why we're exploring space. Is there an alternative motive? It's coming up next here on the Best in Paranormal Podcasting. This is Darkness Radio. Welcome back to the Best in Paranormal Podcasting. This is Darkness Radio. I'm your host, Tim Dennis. My guest is Mike Ricksecker. And the book, we'll give the book another plug. Portals to the Stars. We'll have a link for that in the description of this program. We'll also have a link to Mike's podcast, which you can check out as well, and much, much more. We have everything Mike in the description of this program. Now, Mike, before the break, we were talking a bit about these... We'll call them benevolent creatures. Why not? Or these otherworldly creatures that seem to be visiting us. Now the government is at least acknowledging that they're out there or something is out there. With that, I had talked a little bit about how they seem to be interfering with different nuclear sites, like nuclear silos, which they haven't really acknowledged that yet in the files. They haven't said, oh, yeah, they're messing with our silos. They're messing with this. They're messing with that. Right.
Right.
OK. With that, I'm going to try and tie this together in a very messy knot and have you weigh in on this. There was a scientist that went missing and then later was killed that was working on anti-gravity. And it's a little known fact, but it is a known fact now, that the government had been working on anti-gravity and magnetism as a propulsion system for quite some time, which a lot of people thought was reverse engineering. There was a story that came out this last week and we're moving quite quickly in the space program, probably a little bit. We're not crawling or even walking. We're running right now when it comes to where we're going and how fast we're going. And I think there's an ulterior motive for why we're doing this. I'll bring it up here in a bit with you. But NASA said they plan to launch a mission to Mars by the end of 2028. That's pretty aggressive.
Uh-huh.
Really aggressive. And they said how they're going to do it. But you go ahead.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I think these benevolent beings, as well as myself, and I'm down here in Cleveland, Ohio. I think we need to get up there to Coon Rapids and get some of this fantastic food that you described.
Oh,
because now I'm hungry.
Oh, I'm telling you, Mike, it's top 5, one of the top 5 meals you'll ever have. You come up here, I'll treat. I'm telling you.
Sounds fantastic. Yeah. No, I seriously, and I had lunch a little bit ago, but now I'm hungry all over again.
Oh, it's wonderful.
It's amazing.
It's wonderful.
But yeah, as far as the space program, we've been talking about Mars for a long time, and Mars is really we make it to Mars, the rest of the solar system is at our disposal. Yeah, they've been talking about, we're reestablishing the moon, basically is what's happening here. We kind of did a shot put out there back in the late 60s and early 70s. to basically win the space race. Done. Okay, we did it. And then we pulled back for a while, which was smart because we needed to, rather than just like sling ourselves out there, we needed to establish that infrastructure around the planet for a long time. We've done that now. So now it's been time to look beyond, get back to the moon, which we're in the process of with Artemis, and that will be a hub for refueling and whatever we need to do, resources, supplies to get ourselves out to Mars. And once we have established that process, we can get across the solar system. And this is important for us as a human race. And I know a lot of there's an opposition that says, well, we need to concentrate and help people here on Earth. And I don't disagree with that. Yes, we do. There's a happy medium somewhere. Yes, we need
Yeah.
to help people here on Earth. We need to help the planet, all that sort of thing. In the meantime, we do need to become a spacefaring civilization because even though it's not happening for a long, long time from now, um, and it's kind of dark to think about, the Earth will not always be here. The sun will become a red giant and annihilate the planet. Now, people argue, well, humans won't even be around by then. Well, okay, then you're setting up a dark future for humans.
Right.
I'm trying to be hopeful. We're still going to be around, and for us to survive as a species, we do need to get out into space somewhere. So that starts with getting to other places around the solar system, and then eventually outside the solar system, which using traditional Newtonian physics isn't going to work. You have we can do it. We just don't have the resources to sustain human life while doing it. You look at the Voyager 1 right now. It is this November going to reach 1 light day away from Earth. So, we need to go many light years away from Earth to get to any place that would be, habitable.
Yeah.
So we have to come up with other means to do that. But in the meantime, we're developing these technologies, and getting outside the planet with going to Mars and these other places is starting to develop that. And that technology also, as they develop to go out into space, helps us here on Earth. And anybody that would argue about that, I would say, well, then fine, throw away your cell phone.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
that was developed via the our excursions out into space.
Not only that, but I mean, there's different medicines that have been developed. There's all sorts of things that have been developed by going to space. Going to space is not a wasted venture by any means. There's a new thing now that I think people are overlooking. We're overmining the planet and its natural resources.
Yeah.
I think the other thing that they're doing by going to space that people are overlooking completely, there's a new reason we're going to space. We're building bases on the moon, Mike, and there's a reason why we're building them. We're building factories on the moon. I don't think people are realizing that. And these are mining factories. These are basically mineral mining factories meant to process minerals and bring them back to Earth.
Yeah.
We're going to be mining other planets.
Once we get out to Mars, the next place there is the asteroid belt, and that has all kinds of resources that we can harvest. And you think about all this that we've put up into space right now. Well, that came out of the Earth. It is no longer in the Earth. It's now above it and out in the far reaches of space at this point. So anybody who's watched The Expanse or read the books, that is, I think, a good representation of where we are headed. Not necessarily the fictional storyline going along with it, but as far as the science behind it, that we went and colonized Mars. We went to the asteroid belt and we started mining the asteroid belts, and then we kind of started to spread out. That's a good summation of the direction in which we're headed.
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, there's no secret. To me, there's no secret. I don't know why it's a huge secret to other people. But to me, there's no secret as to what the government's doing here.
It's not a secret.
Yeah,
As far as where we're going now, there's always going to be, unfortunately, there's always going to be a military aspect of it.
Mm-hmm.
In the 1980s, we talked about Star Wars and things like that, and that was very real. So there is that as well. Hopefully, we don't take these conflicts and things like this out into space, but there's always going to be that aspect as well.
So it to me, it didn't, to a lot of people, it didn't make sense why President Trump in his first term made Space Force. To me, they were like, oh, what's there to defend in space? Other countries, my friend. That's what there was, because he had the foresight to say, you know what, we're going to go out there and get minerals. And we may have to defend ourselves because, you know, although there's international waters and there's supposedly the international territory of the moon, we may have to fight for it.
Yeah, they're trying to set time zones on it. Did you hear about that?
Yeah.
But yeah, the United States is not the only spacefaring race, and Russia isn't, you know, only the other one. India does, China,
yep.
Japan. So you have these other countries that are sending craft out into space. It's not just us. So yeah, there will be, unfortunately, become yeah, just like what happened here on Earth, as nations spread out, there are various conflicts, people fighting over different territories and things like that. Unfortunately, that probably will happen in space as well. I hope not. I hope they can figure it out.
Right.
But it probably will. Yeah.
But yeah, in case there is a conflict, that's why there's another branch. And
I think it's one of those. Space Force just sounds like a goofy name.
It does. Yeah. It's very space ghosty, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah. Unfortunately. Well, with that, so NASA announces this mission by the end of 2028, which is aggressive, but then they announce how they're getting there and what the propulsion system is. And to me, automatically, I start thinking of our spooky looking neighbors who fly in and go, you know what, you probably shouldn't use that. They announced that they're going to use a nuclear powered propulsion system. Now, the type of propulsion system that they're using is one that's a little more conservative, but still, automatically my brain starts racing here, Mike. And I think to myself, okay, as it is right now with, you know, we're not, I mean, we've got some pretty good technology, but as it is, you're already talking about a mission that, should something go wrong, even with current systems, it's not like you're going to fix it and come back, right? I mean, you're pretty much going to Mars to live there.
Yeah, and those people have signed up for it. They know it's a one-way ticket at this point.
Right.
Yeah, as far as being nuclear powered, but not entirely surprising. Voyager is nuclear powered, has a plutonium core. And I think that's something that kind of gets overlooked, that we've done that in the past. I would hope somewhere along the way we develop, you know, some other technology so we don't have to do that. Like your ion engines, that was proposed some years back, and they are researching that out. We haven't really developed it yet. And then you mentioned anti-gravity earlier. I mean, that would really be ideal, because right now with what we're doing, I mean, basically we're strapping our astronauts to a bomb and hoping it doesn't explode,
right?
Which unfortunately has happened sometimes. And, you know, so it's not really feasible to continue to do that. Anti-gravity is the way to go, to be able to just lift ourselves off the planet. And unfortunately, yeah, some of these scientists, there have been some unfortunate incidents here where people have been killed, murdered. You had the one lady there in Huntsville, Alabama, working on anti-gravity, where she specifically told her friends, if it ever comes back around that I committed suicide, don't believe it. And what happens? All of a sudden, yeah, she's dead, and supposedly she took her own life. And again, the FBI saying, "Oh no, there's nothing to look at here." Really? So yeah, it's you have to wonder, you know, what has been going on in some of this research. If we have been reverse engineering some of these technologies that we have supposedly captured, for lack of a better term, what's the fallout from that? You know, are people starting? We do know people are starting to come forward and talk with Bob Lazar and others, but you know, what are the repercussions for that? Like, they tried to erase Bob Lazar.
Yeah,
you have too much kind of lingering about this to prove. No, Bob's actually telling. I believe Bob Lazar, and actually not from his testimony of what was going on there in S4 and all that, but actually the personal side of it. Having been in the military and in NSA and all that, and actually what was going on with his wife at the time and all this other stuff where they were going to take away his security clearance. Well, when I was at NSA, my then wife was going through some issues, and they almost took mine away. And basically, the process that Bob described for that was spot on what I went through. So I was like, all right, I believe Bob.
Yeah.
just based on that.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, there've been people have been threatened. It seems like people have been killed over some of this, and it's kind of curious as to why, because it is technology we need to develop to accomplish the things that our government and NASA and other organizations say they want to accomplish.
There's a line from Dark Knight, "Why so serious?" But why so serious? Why is it life and death? Why is something like that technology life and death? Why do people have to lose their lives over something as innate as technology? That it seems to me that technology, although believable, I can't imagine that that's going to fall into another country's hands, or that they could even develop that quickly, that we couldn't develop it first.
Right. That could very well be part. For it to fall into another country's hands, it would have to, of course, be leaked out. So do they believe that these people somehow are going to be a leak? Or did they learn the potential source of where this technology came from, which it looks like, like we talked about at the beginning, there's kind of this slow, soft disclosure. Will we eventually get to, yeah, we got technology from there. The other thing to consider is the cost. Whenever you create something, whenever you have some sort of ability to do something, there is a cost for that. So what is the cost of anti-gravity? What does that look like? We talked about nuclear power, where there's a cost for that. There's radioactivity and things like that are associated with it. That's the cost for this intense power. What's the cost for anti-gravity? Maybe they know what that is. Maybe they were going to go public with, well, we're developing this technology and here's the repercussions of it. And it's pure speculation, but those are a couple of different things on the table there that I think might be associated with what's going on there.
I have an odd off the cuff, offbeat question for you that just kind of hit me between the eyes. Within the last couple of months, it's been said that a lot of different generals high up in the food chain and different military people within the food chain were brought out to Area 51, and that there's been a lot of activity out there, and there's been speculation that installation's been flipped, that they don't think that there's actually anything having to do with aliens out there anymore, that they think that it's an aircraft testing base now, that it's been scrubbed. Do you believe that?
Well, they did aircraft testing out there back in the day.
Yeah.
So that's not entirely untrue. That was one of the reasons why they developed the Area 51. It wasn't just to hide the aliens and things like that. That came up along the way. As we were retrieving crash material and we're getting bodies and things like that, like Roswell. Okay, it was sent to Wright-Patterson to begin with. Well, we need a place to actually store this. Maybe Ohio isn't the best place. What's out in the middle of nowhere? Area 51. The Groom Lake facility is out in the middle of nowhere. That would be a great place to hide it. So, as over the decades, it became known that was the place where things were hidden at. I sure there's a possibility that as more and more attention was put upon it, that they could have said, yeah, we need to move things now because there's too much attention on here. So let's store it away somewhere else. Where that would be, we have all kinds of installations underground in mountains all over. So it could be anywhere now. But there might still be some things out there at Area 51. The
reason I ask is there was a story a couple of weeks ago about there being some, I think it was like 17 smaller shock waves out there. They called them earthquakes, small earthquakes, but they felt more like explosions, underground explosions, which someone could read into and say that's them blowing things up underground, whether they be test explosions, testing some sort of weapon, or cleaning the area up, trying to get...
Or they could even be making their underground facility bigger.
That's true. Yeah. Nobody ever brought up that possibility. Yeah. Do you know, I mean, I hate to ask this because you had a security clearance at one time, but is there truth to the underground transportation system, the underground tunnel?
I don't necessarily believe like across the entire country or world, like some people believe, but between facilities that are within somewhat reasonable distances. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Interesting. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I find that fascinating. I don't know why, but I do.
Yeah. No, those certainly exist. Yeah.
Huh. Okay. All right. Now, I wanted to bring this up to you as well. We had talked earlier about Representative Burchett, Representative Luna, who are on the committee, to kind of I don't want to say counterbalance, because this is a weird counterbalance. You have others within the government who are shouting an alternate view, which they're screaming this from the mountaintop, and it is I don't want to say it's a theological view, but it's a view that I think makes a lot of us cringe in the paranormal world. Maybe, I don't know about a lot of us, but some of us. Lauren Boebert, J.D. Vance have come out and they've let their view be known about a biblical connection to UFOs. They're saying that these UFOs that we're seeing are demons.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes me cringe. Yes, it does.
Yeah, it's a little cringeworthy that we've yet to even... I mean, we don't even know what it is we're looking at.
The vice president went there.
Yeah, he did, and he went there strong. He went strong to the hole here.
Yeah,
on the deal.
It's like, JD, you're from Ohio, you know better.
Why now? Why go there now? I mean, we've barely gotten into this so far, Mike. I mean, so far it's lights in the sky, and that's all you've given us, and already we're getting into the D word. Why?
Yeah, that is actually really bizarre to me, because if you're trying to go down the road of disclosure, why in the world would you try to strike fear into people? Unless they just happen to have that, like, really just polaristic view of anything outside of Earth must be demonic, because there are those people. If it's not human, it's a demon. Okay. Yeah, unless they truly believe that. It's bizarre to me that in the midst of all this, we're going back to the 40s and 50s. I can't really understand what's in their heads on that.
I mean, unless there's...
To me, they should be more intellectual in that. And not that I don't believe there are demonic forces. I do believe that. I've seen it.
Right.
But it's not like creeping around every single corner. It's the extraterrestrials are not demons themselves. It's no.
Because to me, it would seem maybe they're in the same skiffs that Burchett and Luna are in, and seeing the same, non-human entities that they're seeing, and they're looking at it from a theological beliefs. But to me, that baffles me. Right. Yeah, it is archaic that you can't separate the two. Right. And the other thing, too, is to me, it would seem like, and from what you and I know, it would seem like there are probably different races of alien, or different, there's separators. That's the only way we can put it, is races, right? In our tiny little minds. But to me, it would seem to me that at least they would know that, too, right? Having brought witnesses forward and saying, no, I saw a reptilian, I saw a Nordic, I saw this, I saw that. They've even mentioned that on Capitol Hill, haven't they? That there's different types of aliens?
Yeah, there's been mention of that. They haven't gotten too deep into all of that on Capitol Hill, because I think it's still a little too out there for the general masses. I mean, us in our community, in the ufology community, this is something that they talk about all the time. But that's like a really like a small niche of people. In the general public, I think right now just kind of be too mind blown over that. They're still looking, at the little little things in the sky and all of that. So, and I think that's why we're getting this slow release. We kind of have to work people up to some of these different ideas and concepts. Although you could just sit there and look and say, hey, look at Star Wars, Star Trek, these other sci-fi shows. You can see there are different races.
Yeah.
And so that's why, like in something like Portals to the Stars and a lot of my other work, I do try to make a lot of references back to science fiction, so that instead of or just pop culture in general, so that while just me describing something, it might not click. Here, let me give you a reference to something that you've probably seen and would understand. So, um, yeah, I think when they finally disclose that, if they go that route, um, that's my recommendation for you guys.
There you go. Before we wrap things up today, Mike, getting a little off topic, but maybe staying with Portal to the Stars. There's a news story that came out this last week about, I want to grab the name here. And we're going to Egypt because we want to promote your trips.
Yeah.
So tell people a little bit, first of all, about the trips to Egypt real quick while I grab this news story here.
Yeah, but every year to a year and a half, we do a Stargates of Ancient Egypt tour. So this tour, the next time we're running it is March 21st through April 2nd. So we're going there on the spring equinox next year, which is incredible. And during this tour, yes, there are actual Stargates in Egypt. They're hidden right in plain sight. The ancient Egyptians spelled it right out for you. This is a Stargate, and we'll take you right into the Stargate chambers. We'll show you the temples and other buildings that have those. But it's not just that. We get, of course, we'll explore the Giza Plateau. We'll talk about the chambers that are hidden underneath. We get 2 hours exclusive access to the Great Pyramid of Giza. Just our group. 2 hours. Every chamber's opened up to us. There's a 4-day Nile cruise that is included as well. We have a safari day included in this one, where we're going out to the what do they call it? Oh, basically it's like the oasis of the whales or something that I haven't been there myself for this one. We always do okay. a day where there's something completely new.
Okay.
So, but this is like the whale sanctuary and that sort of thing, where in ancient times, because the area used to be an ocean.
Oh, wow.
Like even on the Giza Plateau, right next to the Great Pyramid, in a couple of spots, you see these fossilized sea lions, which is kind of cool.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, so we'll be going doing that as well. So yeah, you can go to my website, myricksecker.com. Just go to the events and tours tab. You can click there into the Stargates of Ancient Egypt tour and come explore the Stargates with us.
I got to win the lottery so I can go on every single one of these trips with you.
I'd love to have you.
It fascinates me, man. Fascinates me. So the news story that came out was about a theoretical paper that Jalal Jafari of the Laser and Plasma Institute of the Shahid, I believe it is the Beheshti University in Iran, wrote. And in that, he surmised that the Great Pyramid may be a planetary beacon. He said that the study put forward the idea that the true purpose of the Great Pyramid in particular may lie not in serving as the final resting place of a pharaoh, but in enabling communication over vast distances through space. According to the theory, the structure's precise location, proportions, and alignment may have enabled it to act as a gravitational transmitter that was built as part of a sophisticated system of cosmic scale communication. Again, only a theory. He says that he acknowledges the fact that the gravitational effect of the Great Pyramid would be extremely small relative to that of the Earth itself. Jafari argues that over time, its repeated movement due to the planet's rotation could create small but perceptible changes.
Yeah.
Thoughts?
So, and that is truly fascinating. So, I can't confirm or deny because you know how NDAs work.
Right.
But this summer you may or may not see an episode on The Unexplained or another television show in which we will be talking or may not be talking about pyramids
Really interesting.
and pyramidal connections to space. But you didn't hear that from me.
Okay. Okay. We didn't hear a thing.
Did I make that obscure enough?
Yes, you did. Very
Okay,
much so.
good.
Great. All right.
So yeah, it's it's incredible with the Great Pyramid because science here in recent years. Um, so Christopher Dunn, who did a lot of work years ago on the idea of the Great Pyramid of Giza being a power plant, really got vindicated about 8 years ago when a scientific study came out and said, yeah, actually, in fact, the Great Pyramid is harnessing Earth or energy out of the Earth and is storing it within its chambers. And then a couple of years ago, there was a Chinese study was using some sort of radar technology where they were detecting plasma bubbles that were forming up over the Great Pyramid. So yeah, it's definitely an energetic hotspot of the globe. The pyramid is harnessing that. It's in a very, very strategic location on the globe. And so what exactly was it being used for? Was was it not only harnessing energy on the plateau to be used for a variety of different purposes, but was it also signaling space? Very well could have been because we also find pyramidal structures throughout the solar system as well.
And to tie this right back to government documents, there was one 1950 CIA document that said that there was a mysterious temple under the Sphinx. Your thoughts?
Yeah, that just came out here recently, which is yeah, there was the document was a list of photographs. One of those was some spinning object by out there by Baalbek. What in the world was that? That's completely disappeared.
Yeah.
And right now with the temple under the Sphinx, this is something that's been talked about, for over 100 years. There were you can go back to the old newspaper articles where you can find illustrations of chambers within the Sphinx and then chambers under it. Of course, people have talked about there being all kinds of tunnels from these chambers to other chambers under the Great Pyramid and connections to other pyramids. And of course, you had the Kafir project last year with their scans showing these huge chambers there under the plateau. And even some, they did scan the Sphinx and they did scan the Osiris shaft. The Osiris shaft, there are chambers even deeper. And yeah, there are chambers there under the Sphinx. Of course, Edgar Casey talked about that as well.
Yep.
So this is something that it's been a story for a while. So I'd love to see whatever photo that was. The photos weren't with that document, but
Yeah.
I'm not surprised to see that.
So if you had to take an educated guess, what do you think was there?
Well, you could call it a temple. People talk about a hall of records. Would there be records within a temple? Sure, of course. We find that throughout our world. So a library inside of a temple under the Sphinx. Yeah, I'm on board.
Wow, pretty cool. All right. The book is available now. We have a link to the book in the description of the program. The trips, of course, marvelous trips that you take people on, Mike. We'll have a link to the trips as well. Speaking engagements, to the website, much, much more. We have links to those as well. Mike, I want to thank you so much for being on the program today, my friend.
Yeah, Tim, I really appreciate you having me again. Always wonderful to chat with you, and I hope to see you again soon. It's been a while.
It has been, yeah. I haven't been on the road as much. It has nothing to do with health or anything like that. I just gotten into doing the shows, man. Trying to produce as many good shows as possible, and I need to get back out on the road. That's for sure.
Yeah. I miss you, my friend.
I miss you as well. Anything else you wanna promote before we take off today?
Oh wow. Yeah. So, in addition to the events, I'm sure you have some UK listeners.
Mm-hmm.
So don't think that these events are just based here in the US, and we have some wonderful ones. But my wife Kate and I are doing a Travels Through Time workshop in Ipswich in Suffolk, England this July. So swing on by for that. I'll be doing my Travels Through Time presentation, and then she will take people into a regression through time. She is a QHHT practitioner, hypnotherapist. So yeah, come join us for that.
I'm glad you brought that up. We have some wonderful listeners in England, so that's perfect. And I'm sure some of them will show up and say hi. So there we go.
That would be incredible.
Wonderful. All right, folks, that'll do it. Thank you so much, Mike, for being on the program. We appreciate you. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks again, Tim. Always a pleasure.
Thank you. That'll do it for today and for the week, folks. Again, a couple of quick notes for you. The Apple app is updated and ready for you. Go update, go get it if you don't have it. Also, support the show. Go to darknessradioshow.com. Get your True Crime Tuesday or your Darkness Radio swag. And of course, we're upon the weekend, and not only that, but Memorial Day weekend as well. Again, be sure to be not only have fun on the Memorial Day weekend, but also remember the reason for the season, and be sure to put in the proper time for that as well. With that, with the Memorial Day weekend, I want you to remember your elderly and disabled members of your community, and be sure to get them to the grave sites this weekend as well. It's important to remember our elderly and disabled members of our community, especially on weekends like this. Please be a light in someone's darkness this weekend and help out an elderly or disabled member of your community. A message from your friends here at Darkness Radio. All right. Got a great week of shows ahead for you next week. Again, for Beer City Bruiser, for Jessica Freeberg, for Mally Fox, for Travis Thorpe, I'm Tim Dennis. Thank you so much for continuing to listen and watch the best in paranormal podcasting. This is Darkness Radio.